Hi guys, Robutani here from FoneArena.com, and as you already know, HTC announced a brand new phone just a couple of weeks back. Now the HTC says that this is not quite their flagship for this year, that's yet to come, but the HTC U, that's their interim device. And despite the fact that HTC doesn't really want to call it their flagship, it does have all the makings of a great flagship product. It's got the specifications, it's got the hardware, and let's take a quick overview of this device. Now the HTC U is a massive device. It's got a 5.7-inch Quad HD display, and let's just talk about the display first before we dive into the other aspects of the device. The screen brightness levels are just not quite satisfactory. We're stepping out with an outdoor environment and we've bumped up the brightness to the maximum, and it's just not all that great. The screen is extremely reflective, which makes visibility a bit hard. There's also a slight tinge to the white levels, and at maximum brightness levels it's not quite a pure white. Now there's another aspect to this phone. It's got a secondary display that we've switched off for now, and we'll just take a closer look at that in a bit. For now, let's move over to the side. It's got the volume rocker, a nice power button which has pretty good feedback. It's placed about midway to the body of the phone, which means that despite the large size, you can still easily reach out to it. We wish that the power button was a bit larger because it can be a little hard to press, but the feedback is really good. On the other hand, the volume rocker is rather flush with the body of the phone, and what that means is that you don't get sufficient feedback, and if you're pressing down, you don't really know how well if you press the volume up button or the volume down button. Anyways, moving over to the back of the phone, you can see it's extremely glossy, and that's something that you may or may not like. It attracts a lot of fingerprints just merely using the phone for a couple of seconds, and you can see it's covered with fingerprints all over. Thankfully, they're very easy to wipe off, and that's something that HTC has going on in its favor. The kind of paint finish that they've used, it has a very subtle 3D depth to it, and it looks really fantastic in the hand. There's a couple of colors out there, but our favorite has to be this blue because it really sets this phone apart. It's something quite similar to we've already seen on the Honor 8 as well. Now, over at the top, we've got the 16 megapixel camera as well as the dual LED flash and the laser autofocus module. The entire camera module sits out from the body of the HTC U Ultra, and it does manage to get snagged up on jeans pockets and in a case as well, and it's not something that we really like, especially on a device of this size. The camera is capable of capturing 4K video at 30 frames per second, and in addition, HTC has done something quite interesting with the microphones, so you can get a degree of positional audio on this. There's a toggle to switch on 3D voice recording while you're recording audio on the while you're recording video on the HTC U Ultra, and the effect, while not entirely pronounced, is not that bad either. You can also record HD audio while you're recording video with the HTC U Ultra. Over at the left hand side, there's nothing really going on over here, while at the top you've got the SIM card and the micro SD card slot. So this phone does have 64 GB of storage, but you can bump that up using the micro SD card as expected. And over at the bottom, you can see is the USB Type-C connector as well as the speaker grill. Now this phone does not have a 3.5mm audio jack, and this is in line with the HTC Evo that was launched a little while earlier. Unfortunately, HTC is following Apple's strategy of dropping the 3.5mm audio jack, but thankfully at this year at MWC, we've seen that most of the other manufacturers have decided to keep the standard alive, and that's something that we are very happy about. Now the HTC U Ultra has a 16 megapixel front facing camera, and there's also a flash which basically works using the display itself. The 16 megapixel camera, on the other hand, defaults to a 4 megapixel ultra pixel standard, so it's using a form of super sampling, and which should technically give you a better photograph, but we'll have more on that in the review. The interface itself is Sense UI, as you would have expected from an HTC phone. Swiping over to the left brings up the blink feed, which is basically just a compiled up list of all your interests and all the toggles that you've previously selected. So this can include your social media and other news items as well. Now something we've kept switched off till now is the secondary display on the HTC U Ultra. As you can see, beyond the 5.7-inch display, there's also a smaller screen up here that you can basically scroll through, and it's got some interesting applications, but in the time that we've had with the phone, it's never felt like something absolutely necessary. And with Android 7.0 Nougat, you've got the quick reply settings and for notifications, and it's just all the more easy to work with existing notifications. So it feels a bit redundant, but it's always nice to have an option. Moving on, you can see that the HTC U Ultra is running Android 7.0, but it's got a whole load of customizations in the form of Sense UI. Let's move back and take a look at the storage on board the device. So as you can see, out of 64 GB, about 10.6 GB has been used up, and this is on a fresh boot. Now, powering this phone is a Snapdragon 821 processor, which is similar to what you've seen on the Google Pixel, and this is paired with 4 GB of RAM. You've seen the storage. So some of the nitpicks that we have with this phone so far. Now, while this is not quite a review, we have faced a certain number of issues with this device, and let's just point that out to start off. The secondary display, even when you switch it off, there's always a hint of backlighting, and since this is an LCD display, it does not display absolutely pure black levels, and that's something that becomes really off-putting in a while. Coming to the camera module, despite the fact that this camera supports laser autofocus and face detection autofocus, it's just way too slow to focus. When you tap the focus icon, it's very quick to give you a feedback, but the focusing speed itself is very slow. Some of the other features about the HTC U Ultra include the 3000 mAh battery built into this. This is not replaceable and is surprisingly small for a phone of this size. And given the fact that this is just a 3000 mAh battery, the phone just barely manages to last a full day. Thankfully, there is quick charge support built into this, so the phone tops off pretty quickly. That was the HTC U Ultra, and this was a very brief intro to the device. We'll have a review out very soon. This was Dhruv Bhutani from FoneArena.com. Thanks for watching.